and then you decide if this is something that you are willing to deal with in your life. But keep in mind, if dealing with you is means draining me, I'm not dealing with you. Why do men and women ignore red flags when their body clearly tells them that they shouldn't do something? We're stubborn, we're human, and we're curious. You know what I'm saying? That's just human nature for us to be curious. And anything that's probably not good for us, we are more inclined to take part in. Unfortunately, we like challenges. You know what I'm saying? So I believe the reason that we do ignore said red flags. I mean, that's one reason I believe that we ignore red flags. I mean, there's scientific proof in psychology that when we have a crush on someone, we ignore like their red flags, like the things that we don't really follow. It's, the what they say is the honeymoon phase and shit. Like you're just so on a high, like the dopamine hit that you get from being around this person, you literally just lose sight of anything that you know what I'm saying, that might that you might really not fuck with, So it takes time to come down from that high, depending on what happens. You know what I mean? Because most of us we're like riding the dream. We're still riding this idea of a person in our head, and then something happens, and we're like, hey, that's not the way I thought that was gonna play out. You know what I'm saying? And then another thing happens, and then another, and it's like, well, who are we really with right now? Chances are they probably don't even realize that they're even being a bother to us, because we're so caught up on the high, and so are they, and unless they see something themselves. But I just believe that we ignore them. And another thing is like our childhood. So like if we saw toxicity, arguments, and bullshit going on like in our childhood, then of course as adults we're going to try to recreate that, because that's a sense of normal. It's a safe space, even though it's a toxic space. It's a total mind fuck. But it's being aware. It's like how we talk all the time about what's familiar to you versus what's best for you. And a lot of times we find ourselves doing shit that's more familiar to us than what's best for us. And that fear, like the fear of letting go, you take into account abandonment issues too, and losing something, fearing like, oh, I'll never find anything like this, which is a scarcity mindset, instead of an abundance mindset. Like if I truly feel like I'm not getting what my value is, then I have to be willing to recognize my own value and move on to something that does, that will value it. Because a lot of times in our relationships, our values are just different. We value different things. It's not that, it doesn't work because of our values. It doesn't mean anything is wrong with her or something's wrong with him. It's just that our values are different. And when you can see these things and understand these things as an adult, and of course, our child mind wants what it wants, like the way that we saw it in our mind, in an idea of what we have of someone, but doesn't always bold that way, you know what I'm saying? So it's like acceptance, like life. One of the biggest challenges of life for me is acceptance, and learning to accept yourself for one, and then learning to accept others as they are when you meet them. I mean, granted, everybody has preferences and shit like that, but accepting a person. And if your values don't match, then you just be mature enough to be like, you know what, this isn't gonna work for me. Again, it's nothing anyone does is ever about you. So once you see like, this type of deal is not going to, it's not going to work for me. And keeping in mind that unconditional love does not mean unconditional tolerance. So you have to decide, how much do you love yourself? Because it's always about you. Your only competition is you yesterday. So when you're in something and knowing who you are, you ask yourself, is this something that I am willing to live with? Because everyone's going to have their share of problems. We all have them. None of us are immune to that. We all have our issues. It's about finding the share of issues, the prettiest issues that you're willing to deal with. I believe that's probably the most attractive issues that you're willing to deal with. I believe that's what life is about. Because the first thing you're going to notice in a person is how they look. You know what I mean? So there's the attraction right there. And then behind all of that, after time spent with someone, you give people social mask long enough, and then, of course, things start to reveal themselves. And then you decide if this is something that you are willing to deal with in your life. But keep in mind, if dealing with you means draining me, I'm not dealing with you, or anyone, for that matter, because I was just reading today at the gym when I was on the treadmill, one of the 21 rules of life. You want to associate with people that uplift you. You know what I'm saying? So why be with a partner that drains you? What would be the purpose of that besides their own narcissistic ways? You know what I'm saying? Like being worshipped because everything revolves around them. And you have to see your value. You may not always get what you're worth, but you're definitely going to get your value. So you have to decide how valuable you are. So red flags that come up, how valued are you that you tolerate so many red flags? How valuable are we for us to tolerate, red flags? What can we do about ourselves? How much do we love ourselves of what we're willing to deal with? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so much life to go around that you don't have to stay in something that drains you. You know what I mean? Like, that is one of the biggest eye openers that some of us probably have to hear, you know what I'm saying? Let alone see. But there's more life to go around than sitting in something that tears you down. That's not fair to you. You don't want to have a scarcity mindset. You want to have an abundance mindset. So I just believe that we stay, we know what I'm saying? We reject the the notion of the red flags due to fear. There's many reasons. There's fear. There's thinking that you can fix someone. There is seeing potential. And you never want to go with potential. You want to go with what you see right in front of you. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of us have potential. Hell, all of us can be millionaires, but some of us never put in that work to get it. You know what I mean? So it's like you'll be waiting forever for somebody's potential to go by what you see right in front of you. So if you see red flags and then you allow it to happen, just keep in mind that the first time you're a victim, but every time after that, you're a volunteer. When should you work things out? and when should you walk away? When it comes to relationships, I say all the time, I'm very novice. I'm still learning what it means, what a healthy, effective relationship is. You know what I'm saying? And dating has helped a lot with that. Some mistakes I've, been highlighted in myself, mistakes that I've seen in others, and that, things I'm not willing to tolerate, if you will. So communication, number one. So if you're in a relationship with someone and they are, they're communicating, your communication level is like, I want to say light years ahead of them. You're going to feel like that person isn't doing enough, if you will. And it's just very well may be that they don't know how to communicate that well. I mean, they may come from a home where there's not much communication. So when you find someone that you actually care for, it can very well be a struggle to, to do such. But yeah, communication is definitely priority. So like trying to understand one's mindset, I think is very key. And if you can learn how one thinks, you can understand why they do the things that they do. So when should you work it out? I believe you work it out when both parties are willing to work it out, truthfully. Because I look at a relationship as a three-legged race. So if I'm trying to, move forward and she's sitting back and, again, this is in the event that someday I do get into a committed relationship, this is my mindset right now. It very well can change between now and then, but like right now, I look at it as a three-legged race. So if I'm going forward, trying to push something, like there's an issue going on, and she's taking it as it's me versus you instead of us versus the problem, then we are going to have some serious issues. Doesn't matter if the person that wants to make it work is trying to make it work. If that person that's not trying to make it work is like sitting there in their own, their own sorrows, whatever it is, they're stubborn, self-centered, whatever you want to call it, it's going to make it's going to have a lot of hiccups, if you will. Doing away with the idea of trying to be right, I think, is very, very helpful in healthy, effective relationships, because a lot of people really want to be right instead of looking at things from a perspective standpoint. And if I look at things from your perspective, therefore I understand you. And if you look at things from my perspective, you understand me. To more than you did when you were trying to be right, that is, because you very well still may not understand me. But it sounds simple, because it is, but simple is is very difficult for some of us to try to live that life. But you walk away when you're no longer valued. You know what I mean? Like when respect is no longer served in the relationship. But are you strong enough to do so? And we all have to ask ourselves that, man, because a lot of us we've seen some shit in our lives, and we've abandonment issues, so we're more willing to stay in something for fear of what's on the other side, and that feeling of just leaving. Like we're fine being alone, like we can be by ourselves, but someone leaving us is like a trigger. You know what I'm saying? And I know, at least from my own experience, I've always been fine by myself, but the aspect of somebody like leaving me, it's all in my mind, you know what I mean? And it's abandonment, it's triggering as fuck. And it signals, like it just relives this pain from the past. It's not in the present moment. Most of the time, everything that we're dealing with is a pain from the past. It's not from what's going on right now. And if we can keep that in mind, we can make better decisions. So staying to work it, knowing when to stay to work it out. You stay to work it out when both parties are willing to set aside egos, expectations, and entitlement. I think that's the basis of a healthy, effective relationship is when you remove your ego, you can remove entitlement, you can remove your expectations. It's difficult. It's difficult because we've been so programmed this way for so long, just from the lives that we've lived. And that's where growth comes in. That's where mental health and just putting yourself aside and realizing that, you're bigger than just the flesh. You're a spiritual being. And if you can see that, I believe that you won't move so much from a selfish standpoint. Like you move more so for what the team is, the relationship. You know what I mean? Like you move more so towards what like what the team is talking about. So that's when you can. That's when you can work. That's how you can work it out. If you have, I believe you work. If you have that mindset, walking away. You walk away when you feel like it's no longer serves you, and you're no longer valued, and you have to respect that. I mean, because everybody doesn't have the same values. So sometimes my values may not match up with yours, and then you have to do what's best for you. You know what I'm saying? So having the courage to walk away from something that doesn't value you is it's so big. It's so big. The ability to walk away. Some of us just don't, depending on the point in time where we are in life, we don't have that we're not able to muster up that courage to do so. But, that's a choice we all have to make. Whether we make a decision or not a decision, or we don't make a decision, it's still a decision. So those are my thoughts on the idea of staying to make it work or walking away. How do you keep your identity after a long relationship, after pouring yourself into that person? Well, cardinal rule number one, you don't want to pour so much into a person because they are a person. They are not a God. There's somebody that you want to give just as much love to yourself that you give to. You know what I mean? Like we're so used to putting others before ourselves. And commonly mothers too, you know what I mean? Like shout out to every mom that like puts their kids before anything else. But you want to remember to take care of you as well. I commend all mothers that like I say, that risk, sacrifice everything for their kids. You also want to take care of yourself. Their kids have to see that too, because they're going to mirror what they see. So a lot of us that grew up and we saw like our mothers put everything before themselves, it teaches us that we should do, like the very same thing. But there's a lot of them that are living with like resentment, you know what I'm saying? Because they didn't do some of the things that they wanted to do when that time window was there. And it's very possible that you can have love for yourself as well as love for your loved ones, your significant other, your kids, your friends, and it's just about time management. But again, a lot of us we get caught up in trying to be bigger than human. And anytime we try to be bigger than human, we fuck up. That's just my theory. I say it all the time. I'm just as guilty of doing so. When you get caught up being a character of yourself versus like just remembering how human you are. And feeling like you have to create something in order to be loved, in order to be accepted. So that identity, same thing, being with somebody for so long. I was talking with a friend of mine in Miami this past weekend, and we were discussing, she was telling me about how for 15 years she had to be, she felt like she had to do this for her family, and losing sight of who, you're like, of your identity, if you will. You know what I mean? And by that is loss of self. And you always want to you want to work on having knowledge of self. You want to take time to move away from being around others so that you can have that, that time for self, like out in nature, away from any and all distractions. So you can see what you've done. You can see where how far you came from, the things that you're proud about, the things you're not proud about, and kind of get recentered, recentered in life. But like, how does one, regain that and regain self? You just meditate. You meditate. You center yourself. You look within. So funny, like whenever we get into trouble, most of us look outward for answers when everything that we need is within us already. I mean, those people that we seek outward may just highlight what we have within us, but we are very, very capable, very well capable of overcoming anything that comes our way. It just makes us feel more comfortable, safer, if we have an external form of support, similar to that, like a child. Like if a child is crying, it looks for its parent to pick them up and kind of soothe them and shit. And you have to be your own parent as an adult. You want to have that. You have to soothe your inner child, your wounded inner child. All of us have it. We all deal with our wounded inner child in different ways. And when it comes out, sometimes it's one of the scariest things you can ever imagine, you can even fathom. But you're not incapable of overcoming the adversity in which you're in. It's because it's all mental. If it's not physical, then it's all mental. So at that point, you have to ask yourself, are you going to withstand what's being done to you, or are you going to just let it conquer you? And chances are you're stronger than what you give yourself credit for. Your fears don't know your strengths, so don't listen to them. But getting back to the aspect of how does one lose their identity after being in a relation, after pouring into a relationship for so long? I mean, it's just what it is, because you've been trained from childhood to be there for somebody else besides yourself. I don't recall being told, hey, you need to look out for yourself as a kid, as the oldest brother. I'm the oldest child, and one of the older cousins in the family and shit. So you got a lot of people that you got to look after. For me, it's like I have to look out for everybody else. At least that's what I took on. I took on that very role as an adult. Trying early on and just getting caught up in that mindset. So when I got into relationships, I was trained to just do what, happy wife, happy life concept, which is one of the most toxic things you can ever do, because she's not getting you for you. She's getting you as her, her character, if you will, like a puppet, you know what I'm saying? And she wants to be with a man, as you want to be with your woman, you know what I mean? You guys have to we have to complement each other in the relationship, So you just you just have to acknowledge first. You're not able to heal anything that you do not acknowledge. So acknowledge the fact that I've lost myself, and then find a way to just, if you can get time, whether you're at home, somewhere quiet, where you can just look within. You can get quiet, like sit with your thoughts, and to the point where you meditate to the point where you're thoughtless. So you focus on your breathing. Like that's the best way to do it. And just remember that you're not your thoughts. You know what I'm saying? You're not your ego. You're not your emotions. They're passing through. That's it. They're passing through, and I, over time, after practice of doing so, you stay grounded, and that's where nature gets you. Nature will center you in ways you could not even imagine. So going to the beach, walking in trails like in the forest or whatever the fuck it is, I'm talking about like trails and shit. If you got a pool in your apartment or your housing complex, just sit out there. Granted, the weather, you can tell I live in Florida, but for those of us that don't have that shit, or that live up north, back home in Virginia, just sit on your the porch, bundled up, and just sit with your thoughts, and address certain things, and take a second to look back, stand up, look around, don't get so caught up in your head, but take a step back like you're looking outside yourself so that you can regain focus. But I think that's just some healthy ways that you can go about trying to, get your identity back, if you will, and just recognize that you were doing the best you can with the knowledge that you had. So I wish everyone positive and healing energy going forward. Peace.